Hey everybody, welcome to the weekend vid. We've got a lot to cover, so let's dive into it. The first being the SPY. We'll see on the month, we have taken out a substantial amount of all of our pivot targets down and left. And on a quarterly basis, you can see we took out all the nearby guys, just shy of making that outside year before firming up last week. That being said, going into next week, we'll be slightly closer to a 2-2 reversal to the upside. We're going to draw out our broadening formation like this. So the question is, are we going to become a 2-2 or not? If not, we'll open as 1, 2 down and 1. On the daily basis, we're going to have a mother bar. So you spent 2 days inside of here. So we're going to have to get out of this. So we can mark that out. If we go to the Dow Jones, it's going to be the same story. Here's your weekly. A little closer to the 2-2 back up. And it's similarly going to have on the daily a mother bar. IBM, same mother bar. Will be double inside day through on 1. You're going to see same weekly, although this one's been much weaker and, we'd prefer to trade other things to the upside. But this is what it looks like as of now on the week for the current triangle. And then we have a much bigger triangle down and left over here. So you're going to see looks like this. If we go to the Qs, the Qs is going to look just like everything else. You'll see the potential broadening formation here. Closer to that 2-2 week. Also, double inside day in the Qs. If we go to the tech and semis, it's going to look very similar. Here's your big broadening formation. Closer to the 2-2 up next week. If we go to the SMH, you see the same thing. Stuck in the middle, pokes up, pokes down, closer to a 2-2. Also going to be mother bar, double inside day into Monday next week. If we take a look at the healthcares, you see also a little closer to the 2-2 week with this big broadening formation. We go to the staples. Staples are closer to the 3-2-2 week. And these ones are still, I believe, green on the year. I'm going to have to double check quickly. Yeah, so still green on the year. A little bit to negate the month. And they were going up while the market's sideways. So slight relative strength in there. Energies, they're still not looking the best. They're closer to 2-2s, but much closer to being inside compared to the rest. Transportations, also, you have the mother bar, double inside day. Maybe a 2-2 week, but they have some distance to cause that. The defense sector, one of the greenest sectors we see, closer to the 2-2 week back up. And this is what your broadening formation is looking like as of now. And that'd be a 2-2 above this, 27.48. Materials are you're going to see they've taken out some of those yearly pivots a little closer to the 2-2 week, and here's the broadening formation, what it looks like as of now. Gold, it's going to have this big old 3 on the week. So can we get out of that is the question, but they're still going off the yearly signal we mentioned many years ago and up about 54% off the inside year and up. Silver, they did have some triangle out last week. You're going to see this. Triangle out, then inside bar for a potential 2-1-2 reversal back up into here. 31.82, potentially all-time highs, which is what I'm looking for. So this is a good triangle out for the materials and silver. If we go to Bitcoin, you're going to see bottom of the weekly triangle a little closer to a 2-2. If we go to Ripple US dollar, see bottom of the big old weekly triangle, and this is one I really want to know about, 3 on the week. So the 3 shows aggression, but we got to get out of that if we're going to expand. So we'd like to see some higher lows, higher highs, or maybe another lower low and then start gunning back through. But I am watching this one pretty closely. It's a little closer to 2-2 days, some pivot machine gun action first maybe to start the week. But we'll see this big daily triangle. I want to know anytime we're coming off the lows of this with weekly signals for sure. That being said, let's go and take a look at the scans. So starting with the 2 down in greens, we're going to take a look at some 3-2-2s. And we'll make sure we got this here. So we're going to see Apple closer to the 3-2-2 back to the upside. It's going to look something like this on the weekly. We go to Visa, Could be closer. You can see on the gap down buy in the week to the 322, back to the upside with MasterCard closer to the 22s. We will see JNJ closer to the 322 week, back to the upside. Did wipe them out, but stayed an inside quarter. So potentially 322, and they bring them back through. And we'd be anticipating something like this. We'll see Home Depot 322, which tells us to look at lows. Should also be a potential 322. You got inside days in Lowe's and double inside Home Depot. These are definitely setups I'd want to know about, Home Depot and Lowe's. With the staples relatively strong, we'll see Philip Morris. Potential 322 back to the upside. We'll see Coca-Cola, potentially the 22 back up. If we go to Mondelez, closer to the 22 back up, and this is one we're looking to trigger a quarterly signal, so these are the ones we'd want to know about, PM and Mondelez. Coca-Cola would be closer to 3-2 quarter up again. MO, we'll see potentially 3-2 in here as well. Just gonna change this to 2 down, 2 up, but mostly 3-2-2s here. We'll see McDonald's closer to the 3-2-2s back up as well. Would be right back in all-time highs off of that on the weekly. And then we'll have Verizon, Cisco, and AT&T all set up. So Verizon 322, and I believe AT&T is going to be the same, and then Cisco will move with those guys. But you can see Verizon, one of those mother bar plays here, the weekly ticks down and potentially back to the other side of that mother bar. We know with AT&T, Verizon, it's been a little stronger this year, I believe. Yeah, it is still a 2-up year, so potentially back through this yearly broadening formation, which we'll see something like this. And AT&T has also been pretty strong this year. Notice it's still green. So it could be triangle out, still going up in there, around 34. In the defense sector, we see a lot of relative strength there. So DFEN, let's see closer to the 2-2 week like we said. And that tells us this. So we'll see GD closer to the 2-2. Lockheed Martin would be 3-2. And it does hold the inside year, so potential outside quarter, potential outside month on the 3-2 week. NOC would be a 3-3-2. It is a 2-2 quarter up, so I'm looking for all-time highs. So Lockheed Martin, NOC, and then DFEN. Go to GE. GE is also closer to the 2-2 week. RevStrat day setting up. And then we'll take a look at the insurers, which we did note as being stronger this year. They're still pretty green on the year. Still inside quarter progressive, so it holds up compared to the rest of the market. You'll see closer to the 3-2-2 week progressive. Closer to the 2-2 week in Allstate. Closer to 3-2-2 in Aflac. This includes financials, which you'll see closer to the 2-2 week, which would change things. So potentially 2-2 back up through all these guys. If we go to Morgan Stanley, see a little closer to doing that. Inside, or still motherboard day. Goldman Sachs, a little closer to doing that. Double inside day. Wells Fargo, not so much. JP Morgan, really green. So one of the relatively strong ones in there. Here's your triangle. That tells you JPM, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs in there. So that covers most of what I want to talk about here. We could look at the 2 diamond greens and also take a look at not 322s, although a lot of them will be 322s. In the S&P, as far as the total, we have 385 potential 22s next week. So big boys might have Amazon in there. Double inside day for Monday. Already talked about McDonald's, Home Depot, Coke. It's like T-Mobile along with AT&T and Verizon, and Cisco is setting up the same. You see still held inside quarter, so still stronger than the rest of the market. Then we forgot RTX in the defense sector. As you can see, this nice big triangle. See how it grew from here. Like this and like this. Make sure we add that in there. And then we'll add Uber in there, potential 2-2 week to RevStrat, the inside month, to RevStrat, the inside quarter, to cause a 2-up year. They do have earnings coming up, so what we could do is create some winning positions in here, potentially throw all these guys up into like 78s, maybe 82s. Then maybe earnings has some positive news for us. I'm not sure what they did last time. Doesn't look like it's telling me here. But going into earnings, we could try and get some positions there prior to. All right. It does look like you're going to see CATS, DE, Tractor Supply Co. also all kind of setting up a little bit. These are still going to be kind of red in here on the month and quarter for Tractor Supply Co. Does have a hammer day into Monday, so potentially a 3-2 in there as well. But there's going to be, more than we can trade all at once going into next week, and there's even more banks, SCHW in here. Remove Morgan Stanley since it's a little weaker, but lots and lots and lots of 2-2s in there next week. Now, as far as the inside weeks are concerned, these will be the relatively strong names compared to the market, which went 2 down last week. Lulu, which you're going to see is a little closer to inside down, is a 2-2 quarter from the macro vid. It's closer to expanding the yearly triangle down. So those guys still aren't looking too hot. An inside week. It's like Dollar Tree, which recently had earnings. Still kind of just inside year chopping at the lows, so nothing of interest there. Really about it. Maybe JBL in there is probably one of the only ones you'll see that's going to be moving. Outside of that, a lot of nothing. GEV is another one. I personally don't trade that one. It's got earnings coming up soon. As far as the downside's concerned, there's not a lot. There's Warner Bros. With the shooter week momentum. There's Para, P-A-R-A, the shooter week, which would be momentum as well. And those are just some really small ones in there. But they're both in the same sector. You got Paramount and Warner Bros. Discovery. So both movie guys going into earnings. So maybe they have some bad earnings. There's not much meat on those bones. They're at $10. But that being said, we have a lot of 2-2s in the next week. We'll be watching all of them, and we're going to be watching that whole market to see who gets going. We have a lot of these mother bars on the day. So if we pull them up like this, you can see all the indexes and everything. So, depending on those mother bars, do we stay out of them or reclaim them? That's going to tell us if that break's going to work off those 2 weeks. So as far as, the consensus here, closer to 2s up next week, we'll see if they can do it. And what I wanted to mention is last week, we didn't have many nightly vids just because on the nightly vids, not going to help you that much because most of our analysis is going on intraday when the volatility is this high, because every 60 matters. And one thing I want to add in here is, like, if you go into last week, where were all the simultaneous breaks on the 60-minute? That's what you're looking for to trade. So when we look at it, the simultaneous breaks were in here. So on a 60, we had 3, and then mother bar on Monday, there's nothing you could do unless you grab those morning signals, which we streamed on Monday for free. You can go watch that stream. There's nothing else to do, really. Stuck in the middle. Then gap up, simultaneous 260s here. Every index went reversal here. That's the short, right? We don't need a nightly vid for that. Down they go. Then here's the morning, Wednesday. Everything did go 260 at the open. Then they went 2 down, so it did not work. Then everything went inside 60 on the flip. We'll see SPY went inside. Qs went inside, double. Dow Jones went inside. So when all of those broke inside and up, that was the signal, right? 60 signal, you get a weekly move. This does 22 points in 60 minutes. That's like a whole week, a couple weeks, like many weeks ago. And if we zoom back out, let's go and take a look at these weekly bars. You can see this whole week, $16. So that 60 is a week of trading in 60 minutes. That's why we didn't have many nightly vids, because most of the stuff was happening intraday. Every 60 is a new week, right? Or a new day, as we like to say. So because of that, you're going to notice 60s down, it's a bear market. 60s back up, it's a bull market, right? Simultaneous 260s on a gap up or gap down, that's a bear market for 3 hours. Then it firms up in here on the 60 flip. It's a bull market, and then they get stuck in the middle. There's some grinding up in Friday's action, but there's still mother bar to this stuff. So the question is, can we get weekly signals going? Because once you have a weekly signal, that lasts all week. Instead of a 60 that lasts 60 minutes, up and then back down and then back up. We want a weekly signal where we can, trend all week. That's the goal. So that being said, that's your nightly vid. Hopefully you enjoyed, and we'll see you guys, Monday morning with Sarah's stream if you're in stat trading, and if you're not, we'll see you guys in tomorrow night's nightly vid.